Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? So the Saints did sign a kicker. They've added a running back. Either of those significant this week heading to Washington?
I think the kicker's pretty significant. I mean, I think we can say, that if they had more confidence in their kicker, this past game might have turned out differently. I mean, I don't know how many people would have made a 58-yarder, but yeah, having confidence in a kicker matters in games that go to overtime. That's for sure.
Do you think if they had a different kicker, they would have attempted the 47-yarder?
I definitely think that's true. I think that could have been true, a week earlier too. I mean. Very, very weird in both cases. You thought probably they should have attempted the first one and not attempted the second one. But I think as we remember back to what life was like before Will Lutz, there were a lot of situations where just the inability to know what you've got in your kicker or impatience with your kicker or whoever you want to pin it on made a big deal for this team for many years, for the people who remember those days.
Sean and them kickers, man. Hey, but you know what? I'm glad you brought that up though, Mike. Because sometimes we don't live with the benefit of hindsight. We just, sometimes exist in the moment and forget perspective. You've covered Sean Payton for a long time. I was watching that game on Sunday against the Giants thinking, I can't believe Sean Payton is just handcuffing this offense, this passing game. We mentioned the decisions with the kicks, the weird waste of a challenge. What did you, knowing him, watching every game he's coached, what did you make of how he coached that game on Sunday?
Well, I agree with what you're thinking of in general. I think we all came away with that sensation that, boy, they are playing this game tight. Like they're trying to win it, 24-13. And the danger of doing that is obviously if this defense that you've been counting on week after week for really the last 17 weeks dating back to last season has a blip and gives up 2 touchdowns really quick, then you can't live that way. But also, I think a lot of this is under the microscope hindsight stuff because, he did dial up a 46-yard touchdown pass from Jameis Winston to Kenny Stills. That if there's not a holding call on that play, Jameis Winston completed a 58-yard pass, a 46-yard pass. They win it by, 28 to 13 or something like that, and we talk about, they finally opened up the offense. I mean, one play changes your entire perception because they ended up losing the game. Or if the defense makes one more stop and they win 21-10, then we're saying, they grinded out these wins with their offensive line and their run game and their defense, and that's what they did to survive the first 4 weeks. So I don't think Sean Payton has lost his touch. That approach worked great against Green Bay. That approach worked great against New England, and that approach ultimately got them burned against New York. And so in hindsight, should they have been more aggressive? Probably. But if you're winning by 11 with 7 minutes to go in a game, there shouldn't have been a moment where he thinks my game plan is not working.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, the other part of it, too, is, they're 2-2. So is it fair to say that this approach is just going to land them at 500?
No, because they were missing 8 starters in this game, and many of those are their best starters. I mean, I don't know if we're going to do a quick ranking of their roster, but Michael Thomas and David Onyemata and Teron Armstead and Eric McCoy are probably all in their top 10, and the importance of Will Lutz as we started talking about the kicker, and Quan Alexander and Marcus Davenport, and Tre'Quan Smith, since they're having so much trouble with receivers. Those are 8 guys who really matter. So I think we all said, even before Hurricane Ida hit, I think after all these injuries and suspensions, I think everybody said, if they could be 3-3 after 6 games, then they can still be a playoff team. Well, now 3-3 will feel like a disappointment because they should be 3-1 right now. But if they are somehow a 3-3 team and then they get all those players back, I think confidence can be high in this team.
He's on Twitter at Mike Triplett, ESPN.com. Read his stuff there. So let's sort of turn the page then to how they get to 3-2 heading into their bye with this week against Washington. The obvious follow-up, Mike, with the respect to the offense is Jameis Winston has not attempted more than 23 passes in a game. That for Sean Payton is still low. Is it realistic to think with Washington's defense allowing more than 300 pass yards per game on average that this is a week where we might see Jameis slinging around a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's the attempts that we're talking about more than the actual throws, because they are taking advantage of some deep balls with Jameis Winston. They're not afraid to let him throw deep. But yeah, it's the amount of attempts. And I think those numbers will balance out. I think he will absolutely throw more than 30 passes in a lot of games this year. He'll throw for over 300 yards in a lot of games this year. But it was one of those things where when you have this offensive line, you have this run game, you have Alvin Kamara, and you have this defense, and that approach worked for you so well against Green Bay and New England, and then, was going to almost be one that you got away with against New York, it felt like, for most of that game. I don't know that we're going to see him abandon that approach all of a sudden. I mean, they ran the ball pretty well. What did they run for? Like 170 yards in this last? It's not like he's running 30 times for 60 yards and you're wondering why he keeps doing that. He's running 35 times for 170 yards and it's working. So I don't know that they're going to abandon that. But obviously, if they are not protecting a 2-score lead in the second half, they're going to have to throw more than that. I think it's just been a lot of game script dependent so far. I don't think we're going to always see him only throw the ball 24 times every week.
Mike, after Green Bay, Sean Payton said that if Will Clapp were healthy, he would have gone in at center, not Ruiz. They would have kept Ruiz at guard. Well, now Will Clapp's back, but we've seen Ruiz and Throckmorton now for the bulk of the season, really the whole season. Is Will Clapp going to play center, or are they going to stick with it how they've had it?
I think Throckmorton has played so well that I would probably be surprised if they had made a change. I think Ruiz has been hit or miss at center, obviously, but I don't know that you look at it and you're like, we've got to get Will Clapp in at center and take Throckmorton off the field. I think either approach could work. I think they would have gone with they didn't know anything about Throckmorton a couple weeks ago. Clapp was the more known commodity, but Throckmorton's played pretty well, especially as a run blocker. So I don't know that we're going to automatically see a change there, but as it pertains to Ruiz specifically, I do think there have been some holes in his game at the center position. Funny enough, last year I had to adjust to playing right guard, but obviously the alignment you want most is McCoy at center and Ruiz back at guard whenever you can possibly do that, which shouldn't be that much longer.
I was going to ask any update there. I mean, he didn't go to IR.
No,
so
we did not see McCoy. Yeah, he didn't go to IR, which meant he could have come back as early as last week, but he's still not practicing this week. So it's got the feel to me now of a post-bye week thing, unless we all of a sudden see him back in practice tomorrow.
Any concern over the defense giving up the late scores against the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Well, I mean, I guess the reason I ask it, the reason I ask it like that, Mike, is they were gassed. I mean, I think that's fair as well to say late in the game.
Yeah, in general, I have a lot of confidence in this defense. We were on the border of wondering if they might be the number one defense in the NFL over the last, 2 months of last season and the beginning of this season, but certainly a top 5 defense. And that doesn't go away for me in 12 minutes of game clock. And again, it's a defense that's missing David Onyemata, Marcus Davenport, and Quan Alexander. If Paulson Adebo is going to continue to struggle, they might make the switch to Bradley Roby as early as this week. So that was one of their weaker points in this last game. Pete Werner, who was one of our biggest question marks, had a really good game. Yeah. And that, I think they're not a perfect defense. I think they probably were playing over their head when they were the number one ranked defense over that stretch. But I do think they were a legitimate top 10 defense, if not a top 5 defense. So I still consider it a strength. And I actually expect a really big performance from them in this game coming up as they kind of probably want to make a statement after that blip on the radar.
He is Mike Triplett, ESPN.com. He's on Twitter at Mike Triplett. Mike, we always appreciate the time. Here's open next week when we're talking going into the bye. The Saints are 3-2, and with a lot of optimism with some guys coming back after the open date.
it's pretty amazing to think about the difference of 3-2, breath of fresh air, or 2-3, and they have to win at Seattle just to keep the season alive. There's a big difference between what this game could do for a mood, that's for sure.
I mean, it's, Sean Payton, they told the story on the Fox broadcast on Sunday about the yo-yos, about how he put a yo-yo in everybody's locker, and it wasn't imagine that giving everyone a yo-yo wasn't enough to avoid the loss on Sunday. But man, this one would be massive if they could get it. They would be right on track. We'll see if they can do it, man. We'll talk about it next week. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, man.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.